is a professor in genetic toxicology and ecotoxicology at the University of Plymouth in the UK. Somebody I've known for many years as a member of EMSI, and your talk today, assessing the environmental impact of tritium on aquatic biota. So, over to you, Awadhesh.
Okay, thank you, Mike, for your introduction. It's enormous pleasure. In the context of environmental mutagenesis, I decided to talk on this topic, which is of global significance. And I thought it would be interesting to assess or give a flavor of some of the work we have been doing in this area for some time now. So this is the background or outline of my presentation if you get lost where I am. So it's an introduction, background, and giving you some global perspective. Properties of this tritium, which is a very paradoxical radionuclides discharged in huge quantity in the environment. And then what are the challenges of biological effects assessment in the biota, natural biota. And briefly I will talk about the interaction of physical and chemical agents, because in the environment, all the environmental contaminants, they occur in combination. And then summary, knowledge gaps, and future perspective. So as I said, this is of global significance, particularly in recent years. So these are some of the articles. This is the one conversation article. I don't know if you are familiar with conversation. This is an outlet of scientific writing which is supported by most of the universities in the UK. And this is, I was asked to write in this article, journal, the conversation. It has got now, you can imagine, 47,000 reads already. Then last 2 years, these are the two interviews I gave in New Scientist and Popular Science, as you can see, and they are quite popular as well, because this was inspired or instigated by the decision by the Japan and the IAEA, with support from IAEA, that the million tons of treated water will be discharged in the sea. Created a lot of geopolitical issues as well. And some of these press releases which we published in different journals, they are there. But the important point here, these two red lines here, we must appreciate that environmental pollution, they don't have any geographical or political boundaries. If a catastrophe occurs, it spreads all over the world. And you can see here just two examples. Evidence of the radioactive fallout in France due to Fukushima nuclear accident, and Pacific Blue. So Pacific Blue tuna transport, Fukushima derived radionuclides from Japan to California. This is just two examples. There are many studies like that. And similar thing happens when the Chernobyl accident took place. And I was involved in those studies as well, just to give you a flavor of this. So just to give you a background information, tritium is a very paradoxical radionuclide, as I said before, and why that is paradoxical, I will explain. The half-life is 12 years, and the penetration range, this is soft beta emitter, is 1 to 6 micrometer. And if you can see here, this is a cell. If the diameter of the cell, biomolecules and organelles, because ionizing radiations can also damage other molecules like lipid producing MDA or protein carbonyls. So they will have an impact on the nucleus and the genetic material as well. The tritium is discharged in huge quantity compared to any other radionuclides in huge quantity, 100 times more. And it is mostly discharged as tritiated water, HTO. But they can also get converted into OBT, which is organically bound tritium. So HTO discharge into the environment gets into the cell, then they get converted into OBT. But when they are converted into OBT, they are bound to all other biomolecules, proteins, DNA, lipids, carbohydrates. So their half-life increases. And they bioaccumulate and biomagnifies in trophic chain from one species to another species, and I will give you some example. The relative biological effectiveness of this radionuclide is heavily contested. Some people say it is a very soft beta emitter, it is not so harmful. Some people say the RBE is more than gamma rays. So this is just a background. It has a global distribution. It's a rapid nuclear transport and cycling in biosphere. And to humans, there are many environmental pathways. Potential for food chain transfer and organic binding to biota, as I said earlier, and rapid molecular exchange rate, very fast intake, very mobile. High uptake to blood and after intake, long life in humans, and high radiotoxicity. So this is a challenging radionuclides to work with. Not many colleagues that can work with this radionuclides unless you have a specific radiation license and facilities to work with, at least in Europe. Just to give you a perspective here, so sources where from they are coming. So we have, in the past, we had atmospheric nuclear weapon testing until 1963, and huge amount of tritium was discharged then. The mostly is nuclear power plants, they discharge huge amount compared to any other radionuclides. The normal level in the river water or in sea water is very less. Whereas with the ITR or fusion technology, it's more likely that the tritium will be released. And what is fusion technology? I'm talking about here, if you see here, in the last column, deuterium and tritium, many of you will know, they can be fused. And they produce one molecule of helium or molecule of neutron, and then it's vast amount of energy. And this is not creating any CO2 or greenhouse gases, so this is very safe. But at the same time, it will produce huge amount of tritium. So last 6 years, we have been working on the European Commission funded projects, which involves the dismantling of nuclear power plants in fusion technology. When you dismantle it, the tritium gets associated with cement particle and steel particle. And this is same with the fusion technology, they will be associated with steel and cement particles. But I'm not going to talk about that. We have published few papers in the last 3-4 years. Because of lack of time, I have not included those data. I thought it's better to cover the bigger picture here. So this is ITER, International Thermonuclear Experimental Research in south of France, Quatre's, and we have been traditionally producing huge amount of tritium and discharging in the Irish Sea and in the English Channel. And in Japan, before the Fukushima accident, it was very less compared to all this. France is the biggest in Europe discharger of tritium, because as we know, 80% of the energy in France comes from nuclear, and many European countries buy from France. And this map here you can see This is the English channel here, and you can see this pointer is not working. Sorry. Can you revert back? And this is Lahey, Charwood. It's full of all the nuclear establishments, their reprocessing plants, and the nuclear plants. They are in Plymouth. We have also dockyards where the nuclear submarines, they come for refueling or discharging, and then they are releasing tritium there in the marine environment. The Fukushima one, as you can see here, this statement says no adverse effects from tritium have been found in the area surrounding these facilities. But the issue is, first of all, no one has actually seen these. No one has studied if there is any adverse effects or not. The lab studies and the radiocarbon studies, tritium on their own, they are capable of inducing damage and they have effect. There have been some effect studies in Canada, in France, and ourselves as well. So this is the situation. There are huge amount in the English channel from different sources there, and these are the key here: nuclear fuel reprocessing plant and nuclear power plants there, and with other industries as well. In the marine environment, the global anthropogenic inventory of tritium due to nuclear testing in 2020 was 60 kg of tritium. It sounds very less, but in fact it is quite high. With a distribution of 90% in the ocean, 9% in continental waters, and only 1% in the atmosphere. Ultimately, from atmosphere it will come down to the sea. Pacific Ocean currently contains 500,000 terabecquerel of natural and 250,000 terabecquerel of anthropogenic man-made tritium. The latter almost wholly from the past atmospheric nuclear weapons. But the marine environment is quite diverse. Depth in the ocean and extent of monitoring would be challenging to know the exact figure. And these are information are taken by UNSCARE, United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effect of Atomic Radiation, and also my colleague in Portsmouth with his colleagues from Australia, he published in 2023 a paper in Science when the Japanese government, with support from IAEA, decided to discharge the 1 million tons of tritium accumulated in Fukushima. They had no option. They had to discharge because they can't hold it for an indefinite period. So that was necessary to discharge, but in a controlled way, filtering out rest of the radionuclides. But from tritium, tritiated water, it's not possible to just remove the tritium from there. So you have to discharge it. But the environmental consequences, they have not been worked out properly. So tritium is basically tritiated water, H2O, and then we have organically bound tritium, when the tritium bonds to the biomolecules, carbon tritium bonds. But these terms, we need to just refresh our memory or remember these: tissue-free water tritium, TFWT, which is, if you take the water from the tissue, let's say tissue-free water tritium, and then exchangeable organic tritium, EOT, which is weakly bonded to other atoms, oxygen, sulfur, nitrogen, or phosphorus, and then we have OBT. So these terms, they are important because when I go to a few slides after this, we will have to mention these terms there. In humans, as I said before, so we have different routes: inhalation, absorption, ingestion, tritiated water, and then circulatory pathway of the body fluid. 94 to 95% within 10 days of biological half-life, they will be out of the body through urines and other excretory material or expelled through air. But 5 to 6% of them, this is estimation by this paper, colleagues from Japan, they will get organically bound and they can stay there in the body from 1 year to 40 days. This is just estimation, so they will be there. Now in terms of biological effects, we have, as we know from radiation, deterministic effects and stochastic effects. So stochastic is mostly carcinogenicity, hereditary effect, germ cell effects. And then there have been few studies, epidemiological studies, at least 60 around nuclear power plants in the world, which suggest that there is higher incidence of leukemia in childhood leukemia, and that have been mostly attributed to enhanced discharge of tritium in these areas. It's a two-hit theory. When the women are pregnant, they get exposed, then they inhale this tritium, and then there is a second hit in the developing fetus, then it leads to leukemia. So, in summary, biological effects of tritium remains controversial, sensitive, experimental system and design required to evaluate the real biological effects. An accurate extrapolation to human risk is really difficult. So this is the paper we published in 2023. This was a big review which was published in the Science of the Total Environment. And this summarizes the sources, transport and dispersal of tritium in aquatic biota and in terrestrial biota. And you can see here from the discharge from nuclear industries, they go to the atmosphere and then they come down. And then when they enter in the aquatic environment, gradually through the food chain, they enter into the human or in the other biota, from algae to invertebrates to fish, and then from fish to, and there are studies now, algae is taking the tritium, converting into tritiated organically bound tritium, OBT, then it binds to protein, carbohydrate, lipids, then it goes into the brain, and then the fish changes their behavior. And these fish, if we eat, that could also implicate human health. So this is the summary there, we published in 2023. In terrestrial animals, H2O taken from contaminated water in drink and food, and can technology is there. So we developed all this. Okay, sorry Mike, I will have to rush. So we developed all these methods, method 1, 2, 3 and 4 to develop this, and all this involves the mass, height, width, length of different organisms. The conclusion is dose estimate software ERICA useful for estimating radiation doses. We did this, and different methodologies are there. We did effect assessment. This was one of the papers we reviewed in 2012 in radiation research. Not much studies there. Hardly, this is for the whole aquatic invertebrates, which constitute more than 90% of the existing organisms. And if you see the database, this is done by Frederica, also European Union funded, less than 7% of low dose effects for invertebrates are available. And this was documented. This is the sum of the work we did with French colleagues in an EU project. And in general, strong radiation. This was with the oysters, because oysters are important organisms for French west coast of France against different types of ionizing radiations. And this is the one which we published in 2023, Science of the Total Environment. And you can see not a lot of studies with the studies, 400 microgram per hour. This was done a long time ago when I started working with this, funded by the government and the Environment Agency in collaboration with Devonport Royal Dockyard. So this is mussels here. You can see different tissues, how much they accumulate tissue specific. And this is another one where we fed the algae, and then algae was then fed for 3 weeks, and then we saw the accumulation in different organs of mussels, and they accumulated there. So we also did a lot of work on with the temperature, how in different temperatures the accumulation of tritium and its biological effects, including the expression of genes, they are changing. And also the organic materials, dissolved oxygen, dissolved organic contents in the seawater, how they influence the tritium behavior and effects. So in summary and conclusion, compared to human health arena, limited progress to assess the impact of ionizing radiations in non-human biota, and in future perspective, sustainability using nuclear energy and radioactivity to be grounded to societal acceptance, which is highly dependent on the transparent explanation of risk, and redefining hazard waste and the sustainable development goals of the United Nations we established in 2015, and now in 2030 we will revise this. So they needs to be incorporated in the UN Sustainable Goal Development. So and these are some of the papers, review article, concept articles we wrote in collaboration with our other partners. So thank you very much. These are some of the
Thank you very much.
I give to Dr. Awadhesh as a token of appreciation.